Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. As always, a reminder that this podcast does not constitute real estate advice, legal advice, broker advice, or advice of any other nature. This is an informative podcast. And if you need advice, please reach out to the correct professional who can help you. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Launch, Grow, Harvest Podcast, Business Growth Coaching with Connie and Roland Kim.
Hi, everybody. This is Connie Boona.
This is Roland Kim. Welcome.
Welcome. This is the Launch, Grow, Harvest podcast. And today we're going to talk about business financial literacy. We're going to talk about a number of topics around the concept of financial literacy and the importance financial literacy has in running a successful business and living a thriving and happy life.
And I would love to say that all this is familiar to everyone because you learn it in school. But the reality is a lot of the things that have such a huge impact in where you can go with your financials throughout your life, we don't learn. As simple as, what is the best way of looking at a budget? What are the right types of conversations you should have with a lawyer, an accountant, your bookkeeper, your partner? I would also, say that many people early on when they don't have, resources or retained earnings are very creative and in a place of curiosity when we're young. And we perhaps even know a bit more because we don't have the money, but we have the time to see what we would do if we have the money. And then I can certainly say now going into my middle years in my 40s that I'm surrounded by folks where I feel like, they've worked really, really hard and they've accumulated some success and wealth. And now they're kind of stuck in the daily routine of running their life and working. And they haven't taken a step back to be like, what financial tools or literacy could I learn now to really get value out of what I have?
So powerful. So powerful. So let's start from the start. Okay. Let's start with the very, very basics, which is, why is it important to have a budget? And I would love to even take it back to as simple as why, as a young single person, no longer receiving money, for example, from parents. So you're out and you're embarking on your life as a individual in the world. Why is it important for you to have a budget?
For me, in my brain, it's you need to know the limitations and where things end. I think a lot of folks get themselves in trouble by not knowing that. They don't know what their paycheck buys them.
Yes. And they don't, one of the ways, and again, I'm speaking from a place of experience where it took me many, many years to learn these principles. They were certainly not taught in school. And I just didn't come from a household where we sat down and talked about budget. And yet I remember what it felt like. And I remember being with my mom, for example, at the grocery store and watching her count as we put food in the cart. And she was counting because she only had so much money to buy groceries that day. And we didn't have a huge slush fund of money. We had that money to buy those groceries. So sometimes stuff had to come back out of the cart as she was tallying things up. And I know with certainty that they lived within a clear budget, but that was never really shared with me as a young person. So one of the things I've tried to embark on as a parent now and as a professional is having a lot of clarity around money in, mandatory expenses, so what absolutely needs to get paid, and what becomes discretionary. And when does money become discretionary, like the fun money, the play money? And one of the concepts I found really, really powerful was this idea of, having jars, so if you can visualize what it might have looked like back in the day. My wife talks about her grandma having this envelopes to, she was born out of the Depression, literally, was a World War II vet. We're talking about money in
Coupons of money.
envelopes to allow that there's enough money throughout the year or throughout the month to pay for anything that needed to get done. And if there wasn't enough money in the envelope, it didn't get bought. And how can we translate that now into modern times? A really, really simple thing to do is to have different bank accounts,
Yes.
right? And have so spending some time writing out as an exercise your expenses, your rent or your mortgage, your if you have a vehicle, what your ownership cost looks like amortized over the year to drive the car, and any other mandatory, professional fees, any other mandatory expenses that you have in your life, and making sure that you're allocating those funds in an appropriate way. Is that something you did naturally as a younger person?
I didn't consciously do that. I was naturally more of a squirrel where I didn't have a spending problem, right?
Okay.
So I never developed that problem. And then later I learned about saving and leverage, and I was able to quite quickly make use of that. But a lot of folks have a spending problem, and I'm going to take it back 2 steps that I want to cover because you nailed it. One, I just had lunch with a very successful business person this week, and it's funny because I would say a lot of people who aren't financially secure yet or starting in their financial path think that people who have a lot more money of them don't worry about money, or don't not worry about money, but don't talk about money or think about money. But this person naturally was telling me how they, reduced their grocery bill dramatically by they now get 5 meals a week from one of these services where you get everything prepared and you just cook it and mix it.
Mm-hmm.
And they discovered that they have no wastage and they have a way better meal with their family of 3 and they enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're having lunch across the street at a sushi place, we could have bought anything, but it was kind of like, oh, I'll hold off on that. I had that last week. I like this as well. And so it's interesting because that's having a conversation with someone who has, years of successful planning, financial planning. And so money is not an issue, but it's a muscle that they've trained where they
Oh, yeah.
naturally are asking themselves, do I actually want that $25 bowl of, tuna salad or whatever, or am I happy with just the sushi combo, which is also nice and it's half the price today?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is something where I think a lot of folks who don't have money think that when you get more successful, you don't worry about it. But it's actually just small little building blocks that build on each other, and that's what builds a big pyramid. And that's how someone gets real financial success. Now, the complete opposite of that, which I see regularly, is when parents, make, in my opinion, a mistake and they lie to themselves in a store. And so what my story here is, I have 4 kids and they have a little bit of their own money, and periodically they get money from grandparents or something. And my wife and I, we say half the money goes into long-term savings and half goes kind of in their piggy bank, but they don't have direct control of spending whatever they want. We kind of say, okay, well, let's go to a store and you have a budget of $20 each. And so what you find is, often the kids will say, can I have this? And it's like $26. And it's not that they don't have that extra $6 in their piggy bank, but on principle, we won't go past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can observe other parents where, one, they just don't want to argue back with the kids and it's only another $6. But what I'm finding now is, we used to do this in the dollar stores with $5, but now the kids have realize that those toys aren't of the quality that they want to play with,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't really find what they want, so they look around, let's say a Canadian Tire with a $20 budget, and they don't want to buy some of the small trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
So they self-discover and say, you know what, I'm going to
Save
save
it.
this, and next time will you give me more?
Yes. And so to draw this back to being a business owner and to being a business professional, why is it important to operate your business within a budget? And, one of the more obvious reasons is because in order to run a successful business, it will require stability to a certain degree. So one of the things we know about the difference, for example, between marketing And prospecting is that prospecting is heavily time based. It's your own personal time. So prospecting looks like obviously potentially cold calling or calling warm calls to your sphere, door knocking, other business marketing activities or prospecting rather activities where you are physically doing the work versus marketing being regarded as something that has a higher cost, something like mailers out to your farm or producing video content. Back in the day, we used to actually do advertising in this thing that we called a newspaper. That would be referred to as marketing. And so as a business owner, we plan for those activities because those activities are built into the ratios that we use to project our results. And we're always evaluating those numbers as professionals. But taking it back to why is it important to have a budget? It's important to have a budget because it's really important to know, for example, for the year, for the quarter, for the month, how much money do I need to keep my business going? And especially if you're in a sales environment where you may be a commission-based 100% commission-based salesperson, what we know about our sales environments is sometimes our commission checks can look large. Woo, feels great to get that check. Oh my gosh, it's so big. And then you start to cut it up. You take your office splits. Guess what? They're running a business too, and it costs money to run a business. So yes, you pay your office for that split. You pay your costs to keep your license active. So you're paying your board fees and any other professional association fees. You're also paying you're setting money aside if you're a prudent business professional. Out of every single commission check, you're setting money aside for your tax burden. You're setting GST funds aside and income tax aside. And then you're looking at what's remaining in the pool. And what's remaining in the pool gets divided up also, right? It's not like all that money then becomes discretionary income. What's remaining in the pool then is what you are distributing, not just to so you have your own owner's draw or dividend, let's call that. Then you have any other costs associated with running your business. If you're paying for subscription services or you're paying for prospecting support or any other sort of business tool, all that is also coming out of the paycheck. So something that looks like a big fat $10,000 paycheck really gets whittled down rather quickly. And so the importance of having that structured budget is to allow you to correctly allocate those funds, to ensure that you don't get into a situation where, and we see this all the time, where all of a sudden you can't pay the credit card bill, you can't pay the office bill, you're in arrears, and you're in a really, really, really tough situation. And in theory, if you had done some strategic planning, you may have been able to avoid that situation.
You nailed it. I mean, and so let's touch on that a bit more where everything starts with a budget. Like if you haven't done budgets before, do it and then periodically revisit it. And then what we also see is people, might start great with a budget, they stick to it, and then their problems come when they start getting success, where they're making money and they deviate from tracking it periodically. And then it'll always happen. It might be a 2-year cycle, 5-year, 10-year, but you're going to come into a downturn where there's going to be some financial stress.
Yes.
And so, for example, Connie and I right now are coming out of 2 really busy years in the Vancouver real estate market, and we're looking at a completely different year ahead. So we've made, we continue to tweak our expenses. We're having conversations with team members that for them might feel like, hey, that's a little bit of fear mongering. And it's not fear mongering. It's just preparing for what if it gets worse, making sure that we can always keep the lights on, that we don't ever have to lay someone off, and that we are winterized, so to speak. And no one talks about that, but that is simply the fundamental difference between someone who appears to have, a horseshoe luck where they're always appearing to be successful in up market or down market. And that's because they are working on their business. They started with a budget and they're tweaking it. And if you think, like, we have so many examples, as Connie and I owning a brokerage, we know of many very successful realtors that have fallen a little bit off their rails, where they're now behind on expenses.
Yes.
And they need to choose to address that, or they're going to potentially have bigger problems. And on the massive scale, we've seen that in Canada. I mean, if you think of Enron, if you think of BlackBerry,
Nortel.
all those folks, all those companies at one point were still, making billions of dollars, but they were starting to bleed, and they wouldn't address that. They didn't take a step back and really make strategic decisions when there was a downturn, when there was a hiccup.
Totally. I mean, it's a really, really powerful exercise, especially if you're, at any point throughout the year. So there's no specific point throughout the year that there isn't value in analyzing your expenses, but getting into the good habit of having a commitment to check and review your expenses monthly. And confirm that your expenses are in line with your budget will save you from a world of pain if those overages are ignored, and then you're looking at it at the end of the year and all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I have a shortfall. Like I don't have enough money saved to pay my income tax, for example. That's a really, really uncomfortable and awful place to be. And so the takeaway today is really a budget is a tool for you to feel safe and stable. It's literally a rudder on your boat, and it will help you weather the storm through up and down markets. It will help you strategically save and potentially invest in your business when the market is strong and when business is hyperactive. And it will also help you, batten down the hatches for the storm if the market is shifting. And one of the ways in which we're talking about the market shift, and the analogy that we continue to hear from our business leaders, is this concept of charging through the storm. And how do we charge through the storm with the best equipment on is by ensuring that our budgets are tight, that we're in complete control, and that we have absolute clarity on and line of sight to our projected income as well as our expenses. Friends, thank you so much, as always, for listening and participating with us in this opportunity to have a great conversation about business financial literacy. My name is Connie Buna.
My name's Roland Kim. If you are looking for budget templates, any of the things that we're talking about, we have kind of tools built for them that are now available at Launch Grow Harvest website. And if there's something there that you don't see, just reach out to us and contact us, and we can lead you in the right direction.
Absolutely. You can find us at kimbuna.com, or you can find us at Keller Williams Realty Van Central. Thanks for listening, and have an awesome day.